This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492.
Oh, and what are we talking about today, Stephen?
We're looking into the future. It's that time of the year, and we're going to ask our listeners to maybe call in and see what they think's coming up for the year. I thought maybe we'd extend it out there to look at the decade or the next 100 years, perhaps even 1,000.
Wow, you're such a big thinker, Stephen.
Well, I was thinking about that because I think we wrote that up. 1,000 years in astrological time or astral time is one thing, but 1,000 years in terms of change is another. I think that the last 100 years in terms of change maybe were 1,000 years. So I think we're going to have another big year and decade of enormous change. What do you think?
I think it's pretty much inevitable, particularly with what's happening in our political world, corporate world.
What's going on?
Oh dear, I think people can put on their imagination caps and see the picture. Which reminds me, I'm really hoping that people will call in. When you call in, Paul always says there's some sound you'll hear when I put you in the system, and you just hang on. And then when you hear me say you're on the air, I'll ask you to say your name, and it can be a made-up name. It doesn't have to be your real name. And also, it's important that when you come on the air that you watch your language. Do you think in 2019...
Like me, I'm watching mine every minute.
Do you think in 2019 they'll change the FSC or whatever, the FCC
No, I don't
rules?
think they'll do that. I don't. But we should tell our listeners that Paul is not with us today. He's traveling, see relatives, and so he's given us the floor.
Right, and so you're listening to Stephen Hurwitz this morning.
Me.
He's leading this conversation, right, Stephen?
I guess so, yeah. It was my idea. So,
and I'm Shelley Rugg.
And Shelley Rugg. I thought I'd also look back and see what some people predicted for 2018 and see how they did. But I didn't have
fun.
Yeah, I know. I didn't have a lot of time, but I came across some psychic. I thought I'd see how this psychic did. And the guy's name is Christian Dion. And here's what he predicted. Trump's plan is really to start a full-on conflict with North Korea. And he plans to either attack them or get them to attack us. And then he's going to place us under a state of emergency and stop all media and the press.
Oh, my.
I know.
I really hope that he's gone before all that can happen.
This guy's got us in 18 into a full-fledged dictatorship. I don't think his psychic abilities were functioning that clearly last year. What did you think was going to happen last year, listeners, that didn't happen? What do you think is going to happen this year? Okay.
Yeah, the number to call is 415-663-8492. And if that line's busy, use 8317. I was thinking about this and about predicting the future and how, the idea of setting intentions that you can kind of help predict your future if you actually start to imagine what you want that future to look like.
That is really a good point.
Thank you. And then you can actually put a plan into action to move towards that, and then your prediction is more like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, you're right. That's great. You got to think it first, and then it'll happen. But I'm always a contrarian. Then there's all those unexpected things that come in, and
yeah. And so those unexpected things are messages, right? To tell us, are you on the right track here, or do you need to reassess? And it's also learning things that hit us, that feel like a ton of bricks, hit us in the head, but. If we can get past our emotional response, allow ourselves to feel those emotions. And then once we settle, then we can start to look at, okay, what am I learning from this thing that hit me so hard? And a friend of mine the other day was talking about how he got sucked into presenting some kind of writing workshops. And after he did the first one, he realized, wait, this isn't really what I want to be using my precious time for right now in my life. This is not agreeing with my personal mission. So the idea of kind of creating a mission statement for yourself that can, be like a guiding light that helps keep you on track, helps keep you focused. But some of the things that come in sideways at us, they're either going to add to that mission or they're going to help us re-examine the mission and adjust.
God, I didn't know you were such a font of wisdom. Really, that's really good stuff.
Well, thanks. I have I have a coaching business, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's it is important when people have dreams for themselves that they are able to focus appropriately, focus their actions and activities towards that dream.
This is going to be your focus for me because I have a one-person show at the Gallery Route 1 coming up in September. So it's nothing like having some date in the future to really focus your mind. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of thinking. And, the best thing about it, and I guess people find this in a lot of ways, is that when you've got some project or thing that you have a deadline, it really makes you think a lot about who you are. Because you, especially artistic end, it's what you do is a real direct reflection of your choices, who you are, and where, what your aspirations are. And, at least that's what it's caused me to do. I think of who I am, how do I want to present myself. It's been a very interesting experience so far. Yeah,
I think when we do follow our passions in life, we do learn so much about ourselves. We have a lot of personal growth through it. So that's, I love that for people. I want people to find that. So it's so easy in this culture to get caught up in chasing the paycheck and getting the job and sitting behind the desk and doing all the right things, and then just sort of this emptiness, Mm-hmm. But, following the dream is challenging. And so that's part of it, too. Are you up for that challenge, that's in front of you? Oh, I thought I saw a light flashing, but no.
Well.
Yeah, so if you want to call in and tell us what you think about predicting the future, if you have any ideas what the future holds for us, the humans on this planet, please call 415-663-8492.
I'm trying very hard to stay on the bright side of it all.
Okay.
But my predilection is darkness. Sometimes when you have enough information about history and the current events and the things that are happening, the words start coalescing. You can see a pattern and you can see a path that's going for, at least for me, and I know a lot of people do, and I'm not going to claim that my path is the only one, but I see this picture. I see things going the way they're going, and it isn't that bright.
So are you willing to describe this horrible vision you have?
Boy, I don't know if people want to hear my apocalyptic. I don't think it's apocalyptic. I think the momentum is growing. Okay, I think it's about momentum. I think that the things that are happening now are some are imperceptible and others are more obvious. And one thing that I was looking up here, and that is other people have been paying attention to this, but I think that I'm really thinking about it more clearly. And
what's that?
We're starting to run out of things.
Oh,
okay?
Resources.
That's right. Our raw natural
animals,
resources.
plants,
animals. That's another
clean
story.
Water. Go ahead.
But, natural resources, they're starting to project the end of these things. Something called manganese. Well, I don't really know what we do with manganese, but pretty much global reserves are done for manganese.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it's fully mined and depleted. By 2072, we're projected to be out of oil. Done.
Well, there's one way to solve the problem.
Yeah, that'll solve it.
If we all survive
Yes.
that long, right?
But thinking that 2072 is a line in the sand, I think that really gets us focused as getting all that stuff together by then. So knowing that, seeing that number might really be an impetus for people.
But I'll be dead by then. Don't you think a lot of people kind of have that attitude?
I thought so, but it's coming a lot faster than I imagined.
I mean, that's just a little more than 50 years.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's a whole other story. What's the longevity going to be like in the next 100 years? I think it's happening. It's going in two different directions.
Oh, we have a caller. All right. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name?
Hey, it's MK.
Hi, MK.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
same
Year.
to you.
This is fun listening to you guys. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks.
I love and adore Paul, but
Well, yeah, this is my first time running the board totally solo.
very wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm giving her a thumbs up too.
Yeah, she's so full of wisdom, all sorts of good stuff today.
Aw, thanks.
I'm sitting here thinking about the future,
Yes.
and I guess maybe being a little bit older changes the perspective. But also, I have an illness that could be cured, and hopefully will be cured in the near future. But if for some reason it isn't, I kind of know where I'm going.
Wow. How does that feel?
Not real great.
Yeah.
It's daunting.
Yeah.
Something's going to get all of us at some
Right.
point, but we don't always have this sort of warning.
Did you ever see that film, The Big Fish?
Not me.
Big Fish. Oh yes, I love
Big
that
Fish,
movie.
yeah. I mean, because that's kind of part of the idea in that film is that he knows how he's going to die, so he kind of becomes fearless in a way.
Oh right, because he looks at the witch.
Yeah.
At the witch's eyes. Right. I haven't seen that in a long time. I'll have to watch it.
I know, yeah.
It's a good one. I own it actually, but it's in the drawer someplace. As far as the world goes, Stephen's probably on the right track. I'm not really a naysayer, but it's something weird is going to give in the near future. Let's hope we've been saying that for 2 years.
And I think the momentum is speeding up. I think that it's getting
Running off to Iran in the middle of the night to say hi. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah. It's getting stranger and stranger.
Especially with the government we have in place right now. They're really.
It's hard to tell who they are. They change so fast.
right. Who's in there right now? We don't know.
I think Ann Coulter has a tremendous power right now. Trump was indicating that he might compromise on the wall requirement, and then several of these right-wing pundits, Ann Coulter, started screaming, and he just reversed course. He just gives them.
Ann Coulter is his big advisor now.
Well, she's a far right
Newscaster?
pundit.
Oh.
My description of her is that she needs an exorcism.
At least.
Now she's taking this anti-Semitic bend too. She's you don't want to know her if you
her veins.
Yeah.
I've heard the name, but I don't honestly know.
She's a blonde.
I can see the blonde.
So do you
funny.
see, MK, do you see the even greater rise of the far right, the extreme right? Do you think they're going to gain more power and more ascendancy in the coming
really
years?
Lucky they will, but I think there's going to take some duck, dodge, and hide to get through this, and I think they're a bunch of gutless wonders.
Well, I think that's definitely right. I think it's all about fear. And when we are so afraid of something that we don't personally understand, it can cause us to do all kinds of stupid things, especially if we do it within a group that's all feeling the same way.
These guys have to be in a club. They have to be in a group.
Right.
They can't function solo.
Who would do that? I mean, there are some people who would just,
watch the news.
But
see their
right.
little faces.
Right.
I am a news junkie, and I don't know if that's good for me or not. I read a lot of news.
Shop around, it's probably good.
I find that for me, New York Times is a big source, and the New Yorker is a big source
I love the New York.
of news.
That too.
I like their in-depth stories, coverage, and New York Times has been doing a lot of in-depth series, and I found that's been a lot of fun to read.
I'm addicted to Anthony Lane as far as the New Yorker's concerned. He's so funny. He's the movie critic, movie reviewer guy.
Oh.
Andy Borowitz for me, if you want humor.
They're wonderful. They're all wonderful. Anthony Lane has a way to turn. He turns a phrase.
So, listeners, if you call in, let us know what your sources of information are, because that has a lot to do with your point of view about the future. And
one of my sources, I guess, sometimes BBC News, sometimes regular news, sometimes YouTube, sometimes. I don't read the New York Times. Probably should, but I don't.
I used to. I was looking up some other things about the future and talking about some people are projecting what's happening in the digital world, and I think that affects all of us. But they're talking about there'll be an increase in privacy settings. We're gonna see a lot more movement towards keeping our information private and reducing data collection. That's where one of my real dark visions are, and I'll get into that in a second if you want me to.
Sure.
There are going to be more free, valuable content out there. They're going to start giving stuff, making us happy. They're going to say, look, we're going to give you more free things that are not just free, but they're going to be valuable. So you're actually looking
Who's
forward.
giving it?
Well, we're talking about, in particular, people with things to sell. They're going to try and form relationships with us that are positive. I've already noticed that. I've seen a number of commercials that I'm watching and say, hey, this is really good. And
marketing. Clever stuff.
Yeah. So that's a trend.
And I'm not necessarily a big, and I'm sort of prejudiced against stupid things, but in my humble opinion, but every single commercial has a biracial couple now.
Yeah, we got
every single one, and it's great. I mean, it's fine.
Well, it's definitely like shows you the zeitgeist.
Obvious.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you want to see the dark side of all this coming, and that is that I've read a number of things about this. Our privacy is disappearing. They've got this facial recognition software now that they can already track you using your cell phone. So, and a lot of this stuff is really happening in China, where Xi is or she is. He's become president for life now, and he's starting to really. Somebody called him a Maoist.
Trump must love him.
So
right.
So they're developing this facial recognition. So not only can they track where you are, but they can find you in a crowd. Okay, so
that's really scary.
Or what are we?
They've got thousands, and so do we, of cameras.
Right,
and
they
cameras
don't they
everywhere.
also they keep track of what you do. So if you're a good person, you get access to more opportunities.
That's right. So they track you online as well, and they can see who you're hanging out with online. And obviously, they can't track a billion people, but if you become somebody that hits their radar. It's happening here, of course. The cameras are everywhere. They know when you pass what stoplight. If you've got a fast track little indicator in your car, they can pick you up at one spot and pick you up at another spot and see where you went. I think privacy is a big issue in the coming years.
I was just talking to Jose today, and he said that his brother-in-law was showing off his phone to Jose. Basically, he was seeing inside his own home. So he's got a security system, and he can access the camera from his own phone. And we were saying, well, if he can do that, So could other people.
That's right.
They could hack into that.
They can take pictures using your computer. I mean, you've got that little camera on the front of your desktop. They can actually use that and look at you through your desktop.
Yeah, that's why we have.
Am I right? Anybody?
We have like a little sticker over our camera.
That's right.
For that reason.
Correct me if I'm wrong. One of my resolutions from last year, and I've got to carry it over, especially on a show like this, is not to talk authoritatively about something I do not know anything about.
Oh, that's very smart, Stephen.
Especially on this show.
Very quiet place.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think if you're expressing your opinion, you can have authority over that opinion.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Something I've learned over the ages. It works. It works, though.
Well, let me just remind everyone you're listening to KWMR Let's Talk Call-In Radio, and the number to dial is 415-663-8492 or 8317. We would love to hear what you imagine for 2019 and beyond. And, Stephen, you were going to tell us about your dark vision.
Oh, it gets darker. The privacy issue is a big one, and that's I find that disconcerting.
Right.
And as people, as more and more cars, driverless cars hit the road, they can shut you down. They can just I'm talking about this.
The big they.
The dark government. So that's a tough call saying they. But if you become a person of note, okay, like, for example, right now it's pretty obvious with terrorists. They've got this one person. They've got their guys down there following them. And they say, so-and-so is going to be here tomorrow. And they've got this little drone up there, and they wait for him to come, and bam. So who they are, that's the military. But I don't know who they are. But if you become... let's say you're in a demonstration, and they use their facial
recognition
software. They can say, "Oh, look who's out! Look who's here." These are all privacy issues,
right? And this is why
I'm finding on Facebook now that if I look up something on Amazon, just browsing or whatever it is, and I hit on something and actually look at it, that will come up on Facebook.
Right, and I've heard that
stuff.
You can even be saying it out loud with your voice, not browsing, but talking about it, and then suddenly see ads.
Eek.
Yeah. So,
I control that by going to places.
For all the art.
I go to places where I want ads from. So I go there, even though I'm not buying anything, just to say, okay, they'll start hitting you with ads for, expensive automobiles or whatever. And
why is that?
Because I don't want to see ads, for...
Oh, of things you're not interested in. Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not interested in buying a Jag either, but I'd rather see a good-looking ad than some crubby one.
Oh, I'm on this Art Deco site now that you're not supposed to share, but I shared the Lempica this morning. And it's great because it's all old Duesenbergs and Packards and,
nice.
and stuff like that, and the beautiful clothes and the wonderful jewelry and the wonderful posters and all that sort of stuff. That's a very nice thing to be involved with.
The light went off. Do we have a caller?
I don't know. Is someone...
You want me to get off? I will.
Well...
No, we saw a flashing light, but it stopped, so I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I will get off, and then...
It's okay. Everything's okay.
Everybody around West Marine's complaining about this 5G and the 5G towers, et cetera, which this is all necessary. They're putting the 5G in because all the new software, all the new data processing has to go there's so much data has to go through the 5G. So, what's the data? Do we need all that? Somebody needs it, but I don't know if we do.
Are you still there, MK? Okay, MK's off the line. All right. Well, the word have to. We must have the 5G. I feel that's actually marketing. It's sort of like you must have a TV dinner because you have no time to cook. It's marketing. But I don't have the facts in front of me, but I've heard or read about 5G that it's actually highly dangerous. Imagine like living inside of a microwave oven and getting zapped by microwaves.
Nice.
I mean, it's really bad for human and other health.
Yeah.
But we're so used to the upgrading of technology, bigger, better, faster, and we want more. But I think we human beings need to recognize that hunger and think about it. How valid is that? Why is that a must? That's my question. So
we're going to get faster. I think, like you said, people want faster and faster. We're going to get there. And I looking on the bright side, I think there is a growing awareness of food and healthy food. I think there's a growing awareness amongst people as to the fact that the companies that put out food-like products are not your friend.
Food-like products. Okay, that's good.
And so I think that's an awareness. Mm-hmm. I think that's growing. And so that's something I think is very bright in terms of the health of the country. I think that people are even in the people that vote, the people that voted for Trump. I think they're getting more aware that their health insurance is pretty important and that it's in jeopardy. So there's even awareness growing amongst these folks who
and awareness about lying. How about that? There's been so much in-your-face lying in the entire administration that. I think their awareness was raised by that. I mean, I guess he still has some supporters. And if you're a supporter, please call in and tell us why. 415-663-8492. So, the future for the president doesn't look real bright right now.
Yeah, that's right, hopefully.
We do have a caller. Caller, you are on the air, and please tell us your name and watch your language.
Good morning, this is Sky Nelson.
Hi. Hi, Sky.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for this great show.
Thank you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from El Cerrito today in the East Bay.
All right.
But I'll be out in Point Reyes this afternoon visiting my folks.
It's a beautiful day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here, too. It's really the same weather for the most part.
So what do you see, Sky?
I wanted to mention, I'm a physicist, and I sometimes get people asking me questions like, is it worth worrying about whether the folks at NASA or at the CERN particle accelerator, whether they're going to create an accidental black hole?
Oh, wow.
That, with their experiments that collapses and, sucks up the Earth or something. And it makes me think about how in depth we can get into these fears about what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
The 5G,
mm-hmm.
the real fear, it's a real issue. There's really radiation that happens, but it's sort of like what I would think about is where should we really be worrying? And I try to focus my attention on the way that I handle my own life. How willing am I to live into my life and step up and pay attention to what really matters to me, and versus fighting against these ethereal kind of fears about what the industry is doing to us and
right
that sort of thing.
Sounds like me.
We can fix on our own.
Right. Yeah, and I think just when we become aware of the important issues, especially the ones that we care about, and then we can look at how we can live differently so that we can reduce our impact on the problem.
Yeah, and actually, I heard you talking a little bit about coincidences earlier. I see the world as bringing us the opportunities we need in order to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So even more than just solving the problems or reducing the impact that we have, increasing the amount of positive impact we have on our communities, which I think is what you're referring to as well.
Oh, that's really great. Hey, Sky, you want to stay on the line while I thank our underwriters?
Yeah.
All right, great. KWMR is supported by and you are listening to KWMR Point Reyes Station. KWMR is supported by our members and Hog Island Oyster Company, a California benefit corporation, farming oysters on Tomales Bay since 1983 and cultivating a beta-bar experience in Marshall, San Francisco, and Napa, welcoming Tony's Seafood Restaurant in Marshall as their newest beta-bar restaurant. Information online at hogislandoysters.com and tonysseafoodrestaurant.com. KWMR.com. KWMR is supported by our listener members and by Marin Symphony, presenting live classical music concerts with a professional orchestra each fall through spring. Performances are held at the Marin Veterans Memorial Auditorium. For details about subscriptions and tickets, the Marin Symphony office can be contacted at 415-479-8100 or online at marinsymphony.org. KWMR's annual Sweethearts of the Radio is coming up on Saturday, February 9th at the Dance Palace in Point Reyes Station. Tickets are on sale now at kwmr.org. We would like to thank our event sponsors: Dance Palace Community and Cultural Center, Good Earth, Horizon Cable, Marin Symphony, Palace Market, Point Reyes Vacation Rentals. If your business or organization would like to join us as an event sponsor, you can email Mia at kwmr.org. We thank the community for its support of live music and community radio. We'll see you at the Sweethearts. All right, so we were talking about how we can have a positive impact on our community.
Yeah, and Sky, I think you're talking about the micro level, right? The personal stuff and how that circle around us.
Yeah, and so I have a book coming out about how I think this kind of plays out in our lives, where when we work at that micro level, it actually does impact the types of events that happen in the world, really at a macro level too. So there's this connection between those two realms. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, so for instance, when we get involved politically in whatever form we want, it doesn't have to be one form or another. It can be any race that we're interested in or any campaign that we're interested in that creates what I would call synchronicities or events that show up that reflects those choices that we make, and that's the macro level results from the micro level work that we're doing on our insides.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing that you're saying that it's all connected, and if you get down one specific path, a lot of good things start happening because that's the path you're on.
Yeah, and that what we can do is change the way that we approach the world and the way we approach our relationships, and that does, like you said, pull on. Any path we pull on starts to bring more and more opportunities for healing and personal growth, which reflects in the community around us.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
I feel better.
Yeah, that we can, by having our own really, cared for life, we are at the same time caring for all the beings around us.
But Scott,
yeah, I think we undervalue how much of an impact that has on the community around us. Yeah,
we don't realize it.
I can't get over, though, we're talking now on the macro level. The news daily, we're talking about, the melting of the ice, the disappearing of plant, animal, and insect life, the upcoming extreme weather patterns. They're just on that level. If you get a little wider. Population increase, carrying capacity, all sorts of things that I just can't get out of my mind, maybe because that news, that information just keeps coming towards me. And, having studied history and economics and things like that, I can see we are what you call a consumer society, and the way we live is based on being consumers, and that consumerism has to come to an end. It isn't just an endless cycle that's going to go on forever. So what happens in my mind, when I project the impact of the end of the consumer society, it doesn't make me feel good, to put it lightly. So does that fit? How does that fit into your point of view there, Sky?
That's really I feel that too, and I think that when we try and approach the problem from outside solutions, like how are we going to address the amount of plastic in the ocean, or how are we going to address the traffic congestion and the amount of CO2 from the cars and the fact that there's not enough public transit.
The homelessness.
Like, I wonder if all of those problems are actually not that difficult to solve if humans are more able to work together and get along in a
right.
way.
I so agree. I feel like we get this idea that there's only one solution, and the solution that somebody picked is the only answer, but that is absolutely not true. We can always find multiple ways to solve problems.
Yeah.
And I think that we definitely need, for the people who are in charge of the other humans in America, we need a lot more empathy and kindness.
So are you guys imagining that people, this is all predicated on people getting together for these solutions? Are you imagining that we're all going to get together?
I don't think we have any other path forward than to do some of the inner work that we need to do, resolve some of the, what I would think of as whatever the issues are inside that are holding us back from being more authentic.
We're hitting almost 8 billion people, though, Sky.
What's that?
We're hitting almost 8 billion people in 2019.
Yeah, and it's hard to think, like, are all those people going to, work out their issues?
I see it. I just see it getting worse.
Culture is very powerful.
I see it.
Wait a minute. What did you say? What's very powerful?
Popular culture.
Oh, yeah.
If there are tools to, really influence people's way of thinking quite drastically if we find the right message and
right. Yeah, through music, through art, through the same thing that the marketing people do, right? We could put out ads, essentially, to change.
The more those marketing people have that frame of mind, too, the more they'll be putting out those ads themselves.
Right.
That's exactly my thinking. I think that if they use the power of advertising on a larger scale, you can change consciousness. For me, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that you say, oh, how do I fight that? It's so big, little old me. I think just working on changing consciousness, just the people around you and expanding that, I think that's the one place where we can actually feel like we're doing something.
In a way, if you think of, setting intention and manifesting, on a certain level, Trump kind of demonstrates that, you say it and it's true, right? Mm-hmm. So there is power in our words, in our thoughts, and our beliefs. And so, if we can start saying, we can work together, we can care about each other, it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's hard to, it's easy to forget that we know individually, personally, a lot of people who work at these major organizations. We know people who work at Google and who work at Facebook and who work at Pfizer and who work at General Motors. Because we have family and friends that we're connected to them. Maybe we are them. Mm-hmm. So when we change our consciousness and grow more awareness of our own self and our own motivations for doing things, that actually changes on the inside those businesses, the way they operate.
Yeah, but Sky, if you're one of these guys sitting in your little cubicle writing code, and that code is used to perfect facial recognition software, which you have your Amazon or whoever, and you've just sold to the United States government, the National Security Agency, and all those guys. These are your little millennials sitting there with their little coding. Are they going to all quit their jobs and say, no, I won't do this anymore?
I don't think anybody should quit their jobs. I think we need people where they are, being more authentic, being willing. So here's a good example. I think that's a really good question. We go into a meeting with our team at work, and my experience working at a software company when I did was there were moments in meetings often where things would come up that I felt a little bit of nudge in my gut, like this isn't quite right. This isn't going to work, or there's something about this that needs to be adjusted. But because of the social dynamic in the group, sometimes I didn't feel comfortable bringing it up.
Right.
Or talking about it in the way that it really would be more authentic to me.
We called that self-censorship, and we talked about that last week.
But yeah, I think that that in 2019, we need to be more heroic. We need to be braver and be willing to listen to that voice in our gut, our intuition, and our authenticity, and be willing to open our mouths more.
Yeah,
for 2019.
And I think there's ways to do that don't tip over the boat and won't make you lose your job, but do have a little more courage. And that's where this sort of self-awareness of, well, why am I afraid to speak up right now? Is it really a threat to me, or am I just kind of socially anxious? Or, working that stuff through allows us to be more authentic in everything we do, whether it's our business or our families.
Yeah.
Going back to those meetings that you're talking about, though, are there people in those meetings that are speaking up and saying, hey, this isn't right, I don't feel good about this?
I think often, yeah. And just the more the merrier,
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of leadership, that sometimes if one person can be brave enough to say, well, here's how I see it, offer their perspective, sometimes that helps other people feel empowered to do the same.
I absolutely think so, and we don't know what other people are feeling and thinking, and sometimes we feel like we're the only one that's thinking this.
Right.
But then when we say it, and everyone is so grateful that we spoke up.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
That's always been, my experience. Yeah.
And how is that as a metaphor for the country and for the world? Like, when we do speak up about something that we think we might get criticized for, and then we find 100,000 people all are grateful and start speaking up themselves.
Right.
I love this conversation, but I have to say that my predilection is that this is not stuff that's going to happen. The momentum for just the opposite. There's the rise of the right. The extreme right, fascism, is growing right now in the world. You've got genocide is on the rise. Ethnic cleansing is on the rise. I'm just not seeing people standing up. I mean, look what's happening. People are being displaced by the millions.
Well,
Millions of people are living in tent cities right now, displaced from war. War is a big factor, and it's on the rise.
That is all true.
China is doing huge things.
This horrible upheaval of horrible stuff that's happening, I think it is actually sparking change. It is sparking people to speak up more. It is sparking people to give a hand, to make phone calls, to write letters, to confront. So it's sort of that yin-yang thing, that there's all this darkness and it's causing more light to come forward.
Well, let me give you an example of what I'm thinking. We're talking about plastic in the ocean, and there's a lot of press around that and a lot of consciousness raising about it. And, the United States is getting themselves together in terms of getting it into the oceans. We haven't gotten ourselves together in terms of the use of throwaway plastic, but we can get it 100% together. But all that plastic swirling around in the center of the oceans is not necessarily from us. Shanghai, Thailand.
Well, it's from humans.
They're just flushing it right into the ocean. We imagine that we're the problem.
Who's flushing it into the ocean?
In Asia. They don't have controls on that at all.
But don't we send a lot of our trash over? I don't know. I feel like you're a little off base.
China has become
Asia.
A consumer society on the level of Europe and the United States, which means they're using all the same stuff. I don't know. I think we've reached absurd proportions about things.
This is true. It's a tipping point.
I think that's all true. And, what comes to mind is that a lot of the structures you're talking about, a lot of the bad things you're talking about are coming from the same type of structure, social structure, whether it's governments that are or profit organizations that are working together for the preservation of the bottom line, but not the ecology or people,
right.
Or all of these things are built out of a human awareness, a state of human awareness of looking out for myself primarily,
right,
and ultimately trusting or not trusting that the world is going to provide for me what I need. So I got to go out there and get as much as I can for myself, and everything else doesn't really matter. And so these structures that we've built are really embedded, and they're there, and they're creating their own creations like plastic in the ocean. So we can't, it's discouraging to think that that's happening. If we develop a different set of concepts around how we operate and start building new structures, I think that's where the possibility lies.
It's a great place to start, and it's great thinking.
You're listening to KWMR and Point Reyes Station, and we're talking about predicting the future.
And we got a local boy, Sky Nelson. He's really giving us a vision of the future that is very positive and fulfilling.
So if you want to call in and add your 2 bits, the number is 415-663-8492 or 8317. All right.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the air.
Yeah, thanks for calling,
I'm really
Sky.
thrilled that you called, and the stuff that you had to add was great. And if you have other times to call, would be
yeah.
No, really, this articulate, smart.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I just want to offer as a ray of hope that this is one of the things that gives me hope. As part of my research, I studied the phenomenon of synchronicity and how circumstances arise which benefit us or may not benefit us depending on the level of awareness we bring in. And I think that's if we begin to see the world that way and understand that it works that way, if we can show that that's true, it really is a tool for our empowerment.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
I have a prediction for 2019.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I predict I'm going to have my own radio show right here on KWMR starting January 3rd.
And why are you having this show?
For fun.
What are we going to get?
It's going to be a fun show, interactive audience participatory show. I'm hoping people will call in and we're going to play improv games and we're going to talk about intuition and we're going to have some spontaneity, and we'll see. I have yet to come up with a catchy name.
Okay.
The Interactive Improv Hour, coming soon to KWMR, Saturday morning, 9 a.m., January 3rd.
Wow, that's right around the corner.
So what about you for your future? January 5th, I just got corrected. I had that number 5 pop into my head, but somehow changed it. So January 5th, Saturday, January 5th, 9 a.m. So what's in your future, Stephen?
I'm just going to wallow in the mud of negativity for the next year.
Oh, Stephen.
No, for me, it's the things that really fulfill me are things that keep me home, my home life, gardening. I mean, if you ask where I get meaning, I try and do something creative in my life every day. It could be making soup, that counts. It could be in the garden. It could be painting or photography.
So you're retired?
I would say semi-retired. Yeah.
Semi-retired.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a kept man in some ways.
Oh, nice.
My wife, there's a big future. A lot of people have a lot of things planned. My wife's been putting together a huge program. She's been working on it for several years, and it has to do with people's health. And she's launching that next month. Right now, there is sort of in a pilot program. I think there's a lot of really important, good stuff happening, and that's on the community level. And I'm trying to become more meaningful in the community. So I'm coming out of a shell that I've been in for a long time.
Oh yeah, how do you propose to bring that meaning to the community?
Well, I'm on the radio. I'm talking. I'm working on consciousness raising. Social media is a place where I feel I have a possibility of making some effect, where people can. I'm posting things that I think are meaningful.
So that's sort of like that advertising piece we were talking about.
That's right. I've often wondered why they don't, we've got this big opioid problem, but I think that they should be advertising like crazy about it. Every time one of these people with money snorts a line of cocaine, they are handing money directly to some of the most evil, violent people on the planet, and they don't make that connection. Well, yeah, I think that's true with almost everything that consumers consume these days. If you follow the money, you follow the manufacturing process or whatever it is, you're going to find that it's not real pretty.
But let me just let's try to bring this around back to positivity. And
yes, ma'am.
I really feel so. I use the example of a plant. Okay, so we all know a little common house plant, and we know that if we stop watering that house plant, what happens? It wilts. It dies. So that's the plant we have removed our attention from. We've taken our attention away from it. It dies. But the plant that we give our attention to, we talk to it, we water it, maybe give it a little food, we nurture it, it grows and thrives. So I think this is the same thing when it comes to what we talk about, what we think about, what we do, what we choose in our lives. Choosing to focus on what we want more of in the world, because it's so easy to get caught down in that wormhole of, oh my gosh, there's so much horrible right now, and it's true. No one's going to argue. But how can we, nurture the positivity? Okay, last minute caller. We have a caller. You're on the air. Tell us your name.
Hello?
Turn down your radio.
Hi.
Caller?
Yeah?
Did you turn your radio down?
I did.
Okay. What's your name?
Hi, is this Shelley?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I was just listening to you talk.
Yeah.
I was hesitant to call in because the two of you are having such an amazing conversation.
I recognize that voice. That's Gail.
Hello.
Hi. Well, thanks for calling, Gail.
Yeah, just in terms of what you were, I think, just saying, actually, I have been going through this exercise I call rewriting my story, rewriting the story of Gail.
Oh, nice.
It's so easy to. I think they've often said, that the human nature is to focus on the negative, it's some sort of a survival mechanism, where you're more alert to things that could go wrong. But, it's so
right.
easy to just think, oh, well, this didn't work out, or I didn't do this right, or I should have done something else. And yet there's dozens and dozens, millions perhaps, of things that you've done well and that have turned out
right.
And, just recognizing how much more powerful it is and how I can determine even my own future, if you will, my own life, by seeing myself in a negative way, and how much more empowering it is, to turn to the more upbeat, the more positive accomplishments, of which there are, of course, plenty.
Right.
And, I don't know, just this whole, we've been having this conversation in preparation for the show, and it's like if we're on a trajectory and we can all look at that trajectory and say, if nothing changes, we see where that train is headed.
Right.
And it's, some of it is pretty worrisome. I mean, some of it's horrible.
Yeah.
But just by our awareness at this moment in time, we can change the trajectory by the things that you're describing, by having the more positive and by building more positive responses. We have the possibility of, well, okay, then it's a different trajectory. I mean, that trajectory is based on the fact if everything goes exactly as it continues.
Right.
If it continues in a new way, then
right. If we throw our hands in the air and do nothing, yeah. But
so I think that there's, things to be worried about, and I think that there's really great opportunities. Yeah. And, maybe a lot of people have reached that point where they need to wake up and say, oh, it's going to change if I change it. It's going to change if something changes.
Right, right.
And, there's lots of opportunities in that regard to do.
And people who are deeply enmeshed in business or nonprofits, they know you keep doing the same thing, you get the same result. If you want better results, you have to change something. But somehow we don't, use that in our own everyday lives.
Well, I think that people are expanding it onto a more global, they're realizing that, okay, you start with yourself and you start with that thing in the center, but there's just, there's a lot of stuff that needs tending to right now that we can't take for granted. And
well, I think, again, we can each have our own personal leadership. We lead by example. So, when we make better choices and we engage in ways that we think are helpful and are going to make the world better, other people will see us and start thinking about those things too.
Exactly. Well, that is good.
It's a good thing.
Yes. So Stephen and I will continue to keep each other in bed.
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, Gail. I think we'll wrap this up. And next week, I can announce I'm going to be interviewing Dave Osborne here on the radio, talking about being vegan. And there's a big event he has coming up. So tune in next Thursday to Let's Talk to hear from Dave.
All right.
And I guess that'll do it for today.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. And thank you, Stephen. Here we go.